pleasure to me, although I got to tell you, how I will get through a whole year of doing this is beyond me. And I seriously don't think I can do it without some help of some friends. So we'll see how this goes. But it really is. It's great for me to read these lessons again and see that all the concerns that people have as to whether they're doing the lessons the right way, how the lessons need to get done, whether they're getting out of the lessons what they're supposed to be getting out of the lessons, all the concerns that we have are actually dealt with by Jesus in each and every one of the lessons, because he knows us that well. He knows us in our denial, and he knows us in our wholeness and our perfection. And his understanding of what we are is not swayed by our own denial and our own thoughts, perhaps that these are things that we can't do and won't help us. He is adamant about the fact that it's the mere doing of the exercises that will produce a change. It will begin to, as Regina said, in a questioning of everything, it'll begin to chop at the legs, chop at the foundation of the ego's thought system. And in any given moment, when one thought is questioned and seen for what it is in its entirety, the entirety of the ego thought system falls like a house of cards. And in that instant, we see clearly that the thoughts like today, my thoughts have been meaningless. None of the thoughts that I've had about anything actually have anything to do with what's going on. And they certainly do not present me with an adequate picture of who I am in the kingdom, because they're all based on limitation, and I wasn't created that way. And the only way to truly learn about what it is I am and about what it is my function here is to go directly to our source through our, what Jesus calls himself an intermediary. He's an intermediary because he helps us undo our mind in a way that he was undone, so that he could, if we can, like he did, seek ye first the kingdom in all of our affairs. So it's been a blessing to me to look at these lessons, and to the degree to which it helps anyone, it's incredible. It's great for me because whenever I pick up A Course in Miracles and I read it, I've been blessed to be able to have, this divine guidance come in and help me not necessarily any longer understand the Course, but understand myself in regard to fulfilling my function here. And one of the things I find that is different about A Course in Miracles is that there's an element where we're being offered the ability, exactly as we are, using all of the faculties that we think we have, to fulfill a function in the plan through atonement by learning what God's will is and how we can proceed to do God's will in the world and fulfill our function, the one that we've been given in the plan for salvation. And all joy comes from fulfillment of that function. What I find different about the Course is what Jesus is saying, in a sense, much as he taught 2,000 years ago, is take no heed of what you think. You consider the lilies of the field, the birds in the air. Everything that is required is being given to us for us to fulfill our function. And as we learn of our function, and as we go about walking the day with the desire and will to fulfill our function, and getting that guidance, and doing and saying yes to the guidance, and watching what is meant to happen be made manifest without any effort on our part, but by the grace of God, one of the things that begins to happen is all the experiences that are on this road, this path that we're on, from the forgetting of who we are to the remembering and the awakening once again of our reality within us, all the experiences that we are required to have that teach us the lessons we need to learn in order for our minds and our hearts to be healed of the single problem, which is separation, or the apparent condition of separation. All the experiences that we need are given to us as we're ready to accept them. And it is in those experiences that we actually find and discover our reality and what we need to awaken. So it's not a path of awakening, but it is saying that the point of your awakening is already been set by the mind itself. And if we follow the guidance that we're given, we will be on the path that will allow us, in the most rapid and efficient way possible, go through the necessary experiences that are required of us to once and for all squelch the raucous screaming of the ego that keeps us from hearing of the truth of who we are, and keeps us from staying in that connection. We finally have enough experiences to show us that the ego does not have to run our life, nor do the limitations that it presents us with have to be succumbed to in order for us to be who we are. So the ego, through these experiences that we have, begins to take less and less of a prominence in our minds and in our hearts. And as we lose the fear and the guilt, because of the nature of how we're being trained to lose our mind, we no longer have to worry about, in a sense, what I'm talking about is we lose the necessity to be a seeker, because on the path that we're given to walk as happy learners with the Holy Spirit, we're constantly in a condition of finding that which we need in order for us to realize the truth of who we are as we go about our Father's business of fulfilling our function in space and time, so that we no longer have to repeat this cyclical journey of death and finally see the reality of salvation being here and now. So with that, I think I'm going to play a little music, and then if Dave is back, maybe Dave want to say something, or have a little conversation or something after we listen. So everybody just still your minds. There really isn't anything to get. There is nothing to get. You've already been given everything. You were created whole and perfect. That's unalterable and unchangeable. It would only be what Jesus refers to as the debris left through egoic thinking that needs to be cleared away for us to see the truth and reality of who we are and begin to experience where we actually are. So I'm going to play a little music right now.
Come down off your throne and leave your body alone. Somebody must change. You are wasted and I can't find my way home. Come down on your own and leave your body alone. Somebody must change. You are the reason I've been waiting all these years. Somebody holds the key, but I'm million now. Just thank God the time. Oh, and I'm wasted and I can't find my way home. But 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 I can't find my way home. Till I can't find my way home. And I ain't got nothing wrong. But I can't find my way home.
Well, let me see. Is the sound back? Dave just went AWOL. Oh, okay, cool. Well, I know I just read Christy P's question here. I just had a really weird experience of having two dreams at once. Very vivid. Is this meaningless? Well, I don't know. You know, I think I think that's one of the problems, and this goes to why I think I'm doing what I'm doing with the workbook. Is this one of the problems? Is this that we have? The first part of the workbook, when we're talking about our meaningless thoughts, it's really designed to help us get rid of the debris, all the surface stuff that the ego just keeps chattering on about day and night, in order to uncover the source of real meaning. So, in a sense, well, you know, we're being told my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. It doesn't mean that what we're experiencing is meaningless. It means that to interpret from a position of not knowing anything and give us its meaningless interpretation, which is actually no help in us understanding who we are and what our true function is. So we have meaningless thoughts. We're actually training our mind to open up, to find where we're connected with the source of all meaning, where we didn't, where our, let's say, where the communication that we have with reality, which is the source of all meaning, is still very active in us. And that's down in where we're already souls, we're already a whole and perfect. And I think there's always, um, and let's call it, that's our source. That's where we're connected with the love of God. That's where we are, the love of God. Now, my understanding is this: there really is only one power. There is only one, and that is what love is. So any sensations that we're experiencing are merely the desire to love, for love to break into our awareness so that we can recognize it as who we are, as our reality. It's the ego, that's those surface thoughts, the thoughts that are just constant associations of the past, that wants us to look at these things as if they are meaningless, as if they have a meaning, but the meaning is detached and separate from what our purpose is. And we have to learn to question everything. So, the idea of whether these two, somewhere there's meaning in everything that happens to us. It's learning to utilize our right mind more and more consistently so as to glean the true meaning behind everything. That's important. So but when you said that, when you mentioned, I remember there was a time, there was a night when, and I had been told to keep a dream journal. I had been told that it would be important to write down my dreams. And I remember I was living, I had just moved to Boston. I was living at my brother's house, and I woke up and I had this dream that I knew was significant, and I instantaneously forgot it, so I couldn't write it down. But I knew that if it was important, it would come back to me. So what was interesting is I went back to sleep and I had a second dream that was very similar in form to the first dream, but using slightly different symbols. And the minute that I woke up and remembered the second dream and its symbols, I instantaneously remembered the first dream and the set of symbols that it was using me to tell me the same message. So I think that, everything is decipherable. Everything, all of our thoughts. you know, no, it is. This is a dream. The whole thing is a dream of a secret. I mean, it is a secret dream in that sense, where these hidden desires that seem to be against the will of the Father, that seem to be against what we were created for, get acted out for a second. So, in that sense, I mean, that's what the dream is. It's an attempt to hide, from God in order to do what can't be done, in order to live the impossible dream. So, I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense or if it even helps. um, so I don't know. So who's here? Who would like to? Who would like to take the mic and either say something, or I don't know. Dave, are you capable of taking the mic? I mean, the truth of the matter is, I don't really know what there is to talk about any longer. It comes down to a point in time when none of the concepts that we're using to talk about anything have any reality. And the most that we can get out of the use of concepts is begin to use concepts that are in line with the truth of who we are, and allow the truth of who we are to...
Can anyone... Hello?
Dave, if you click on the arrow by the mic and hit lock mic, it should work for you, because we did hear you.
Mike, can you hear me? Is Ted still talking? I don't know who that was that just spoke to me. Alright, so I've locked my mic on and I can't hear a thing now. I really need some instructions with this thing. No. Yeah, I don't know what the hell. Oh, all sound is currently being transmitted. Can somebody send me a little message on the Awakening Together room there, just saying if you can hear me or not? Because I hear nothing. Purchase Paltalk credits. Sorry, everybody. Maybe somebody else can talk if I'm still talking until I get it sorted. Oh, I'm talking? Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. I can't hear a thing here, so I'm just guessing I'm talking to myself, which is always the case anyway. Just say whatever. Thanks, Annie. Well, I did want to say something about something Ted was saying, which is kind of ridiculous, but anyway. So welcome. Thanks for having me on here. My camera's not working. I'm not sure what else isn't working, but that's perfect for time and space. Everything's just all fucked up. Oh, and sorry, I heard a language warning thing before, so I better not be swearing, I suppose. All right, Course in Miracles. Gee, it's like what use are words at this stage? It's like the thing I think about with me. It's like I was introduced to this 17 odd years ago. Through listening to the Direct Voice for God, which I don't know if you've ever seen a Cecil B. DeMille movie where God speaks to Moses. It was exactly like that in my head, all around and everywhere. But it brought me to the place in Byron where Ted was teaching, and there was a lot of experiences associated with that at the time. But anyway, I just wanted to talk to Ted because like he's taken on this message, which I was given some months ago, and I think Annie was also given the same message, that Ted's to start doing these videos and putting himself out online as a representative of the course. So it's like, firstly, thanks for doing that. I feel like I have been kind of relieved of that because there was a little angst about delivering the message. You never know really whether it's been delivered until you hear it for yourself or it becomes active in you. And the odd thing is that I've just started doing these little videos myself at the same time Ted started doing his, so like we're all the one thing. It's just my mind I'm looking at. Oh, is that loud? Is that too loud? Oh, swear as much as you want, says Annie. Fuck that. Anyway, so I think since Ted and I are both on here, which has been some time since we've been both together in the same temporal space, I want to put down something here. I don't know how many people are even in this room. I want to put down something here that is kind of like a declaration, and maybe Ted can talk about making declarations later because they're kind of cool. Is that I had an experience in probably about the year 2000, 2001, whilst at Byron Bay with Ted, wherein I made an experiment with my spirituality. I was completely stressed out with the course book and everything else. I was just over it, done the workbook, got everything out of that I could at that point in time. And I sat in the session room. We had this big kind of meditational room, if you can imagine it, with chairs all around, and I was pretty tripped up in those days. I wasn't on drugs or anything or whatever like that, but my headspace was very different. And I arranged a dozen chairs in a circle for myself. Don't ask me why. And I sat in the middle on a cushion and invited whoever the hell was watching me, because I knew there were non-temporal beings that were watching over me, to make themselves known to me, because I had some shit I wanted to say. I wanted to part of me wanted to grab someone by the throat and go, what the hell's going on? And the other part of me wanted some clarification on everything that was going on, like in a gentler way. But anyway, so I had this kind of sort of prayer session and acting out thing that I've since done several times. And I think it was the next night, I was just sort of laying in my bed watching TV, and a golden orb, I don't know how to describe it, a sphere, appeared beside me, hovering in midair in my bed, probably about the size of a squash ball, and it was about maybe 2 meters from my face, translucent. I could see through it, but at the same time it was brilliant, golden, sort of shining thing. And as I looked at it, I wasn't really in any kind of headspace. I was just calm all the time. It came over to me to within a hand's distance from my face, and then engulfed me. And I don't know how to. It just suddenly expanded and engulfed me and sucked me into it. And I don't really have a description how that felt or anything like that. But anyway, I was gone. I was gone from the world, and I found myself in a dark blackness. Now, some people might think that, oh, that's the void, but it's like, man, I've been in the void, and the void's just shit. This wasn't the void. This was like a room, like it was like a controlled sort of space, but all around me were these beings. They weren't physically physical. They weren't represented like ghosts. They were mental thoughts, and I don't know how to describe that. They were all individual, all completely, each one different from the next. And I knew that they were living beings or living consciousnesses or some, higher up the food chain than me. And I had no body, no physical presence at all. I was just my own mind. I was just spirit. And one of them sort of came down to me. I can't describe that. It was as if I was in an amphitheater. One of them came down to me, and I realised that I was being taken on a kind of guided tour of the circle, if you like, of these elders or counsellors or overseers, whatever you want to call them. And we got to a space where there was a gap, a very pronounced gap. And the one that was with me said, "This is where your teacher Ted sits." And then it finished. I woke up in my bed the next morning, and or maybe it was that evening, and I raced over to Ted's cabin and told him what had happened. And he said, "Well, it sounds like you just got an assignment, and certainly a lot's happened since then, so that's probably true." But that, despite the fact that I'd hung out with Ted for 6 years in Byron Bay as my teacher and student teacher, or whatever that situation is the course talks about, but despite all of those years that we were together, that was the first moment in my mind that I connected with Ted and went, aha, I see what's going on, which led me to understand that there is a governance above the world, if you like, that ensures that what's meant to happen will happen. And from that point on, I had a real sitting down in an armchair kind of feeling, like relaxing, putting my feet up, and like nothing to worry about. Like really, really, really and that was really cool. And but anyway, so that's, Ted and I, since then, like, we don't talk much. We just sort of have little messages here and there and back on Facebook from time to time. But it's like, man, what is there to talk about? It's like, if you're still doing the Course in Miracles, the workbook, and I'm not, like, I haven't done that, haven't even read the book really for 10 years, but if you're still reading that book, and the only thing I ever tell people is, don't worry about what it says, just do it. Just apply it. Even if you're trying to work out how you think you're applying it and how should I apply it and everything, man, follow the instructions. If you get it wrong, you've got this whole fail-safe thing of this whole mechanism that's beyond your comprehension, that totally takes up the slack for you. Like, the fix is in, we used to say. It really is. Don't worry about what you think's meant to happen. Keep your mind clear and let whatever happen happen. I didn't have my first thing with the workbook until lesson 12, and I woke up in the morning. I did lesson 11. I woke up to do, or maybe I did lesson 12, and I woke up to do lesson 13 the next morning, and I realised I was completely different, a completely different consciousness. It was like 90% of my mind, brain, whatever you want to look at that as, was taken away. I'd gone from being a person who felt like they were stuck in a warehouse full of boxes crammed into a corner, couldn't move, my mind was a cacophony of insanity, to being a tiny white bird in a massive blue sky. And that lasted about 3 or 4 days, and then I corrupted it and filled my mind up with a lot of shit again, and kept applying the lessons. But gradually it kicked in. So anyway, I'm gonna sign off, I just wanted to say that because I know that Ted gets on here a lot, and there's a lot of guys like to sort of like volley back and forth with Ted and make fun of things and what's said, and I've seen it over the years on Facebook, and to me that's fucking ridiculous. If you knew what I knew about that guy Ted, man, you would just shut the fuck up and listen what he had to say and do whatever. But there's more going on here than what you can be aware of in the temporal zone. That's all. Just try to tune into that. Make some experiments with your life. Like, put the bloody book down for a change. Get off Paltalk and go out and actually stub your toes on some shit. Alright, I love you guys. You can't do anything wrong. Hang on, I don't even know how to turn the damn thing off now. Annie? Hang on, I've got to get out of this.
So that was Dave. I really, let me see. Let me think about this for a second. So, there seems to be a couple of different, basically, and Vicky's here. Is Vicky still here? Yeah, I can see her name in the room. Vicky and I used to have a conversation about people who come to A Course in Miracles. And there seems to be people, it talks about, we've talked about whether it's a top-down or a bottom-up approach. And people who have revelatory experiences, tend to have this top-down approach, and people who are just coming at it from, the simple frustration of being human and wanting some relief, they have like this bottom-up way. And the truth of the matter is, I don't see any difference in how they work, because, even though, the truth is my mind went through a profound revelatory period, and it still does from time to time. One of the things that Jesus talks about in the Course is the fact that we were going to have many experiences along the way. And each time we have an experience, it's going to alter our view of ourself and the world. And we will form another self-concept for ourselves and all the people we have imaged the world with, until we have the next experience that destroys that as well, and we come into a new understanding. And that's just the way the process works. Now, what I've found is it doesn't matter whether you have a revelatory experience to begin with or not. You're still in the same boat, and I'm still in the same boat. There are a lot of things that I know and remember about myself as well. But the truth of the matter is, we all find ourselves right here, right now, coming together with a single purpose. And that's ending the idea that we're separate, recognizing the wholeness and perfection that is within each and every one of us, and then learning to offer the entirety of our being, even here in space and time, into the service of, God's will, into the seeking first of the kingdom. Seek ye first the kingdom, and all else will be given unto you. It doesn't matter how we started. It doesn't matter whether you had a revelatory experience or not. There's pitfalls each way. There are pitfalls that have to be overcome either way. The truth of the matter is, a revelatory experience will show you that we all have the single self-same, divine, holy, perfect, infinite, and eternal source. Whether it was given to me to know that through revelation, whether I remember coming in knowing that or not, we still all have to shake off the cobwebs of forgetting that we necessarily take on in order to be in space and time at all. So it doesn't matter, if we talked about, the plan for salvation and Jesus being a special agent. He may have entered in with full knowledge of what the plan is. However, when you enter into this, you enter into the condition of forgetting, wherein which you have to do everything necessary in order to remember, so as to play the part that you have given yourself and that we've all given to each other in salvation. And you know, I don't know. Neither one seems to have an advantage over the other, to me, because the truth of the matter is, we are definitely responsible for our own thinking. We are definitely responsible for our own hearts and minds. And the people who I know, the brothers who I know, who have undergone revelatory experiences, have to be equally responsible for that revelatory experience. And it comes, you know, it comes, let's put it this way, it definitely comes at a price to what you think is your human life. I mean, people talk about the idea that they want to have revelation, they want to have a revelatory experience. There's no one here who's ready for a revelatory experience. And anyone who's had a true one will tell you that they definitely were not ready. And it turns your mind around so completely. And in a period of time, of no time beyond time, and that no time beyond time does not, in a sense, coincide or relate any way to the amount of time that it takes to have it. So your mind can be blown open entirely. And like, you know, Eckhart Tolle, who is, you know, a contemporary mystic, what I think of him and what is neither here nor there. The truth of the matter is, Eckhart Tolle had a profound revelatory experience, and he had to sit on a park bench because he had no idea what he was meant to do or how to go about doing what he was doing. When we look at the people throughout the course of history who have gone through revelatory experiences, it's not always a pretty sight. Unless you learn, and to me, one of the reasons why I think A Course in Miracles has been made available to us at this time is because, you know, we are living in the fruition of Jesus's accomplishment of resurrection. And more people are beginning. We used to call them poppers when you go out, when the master teacher was around, when the old man was around, and, you know, to a certain degree when people hung around, you'd say at the center in Byron, you know, there was in a sense a stage had been set for people to enter into, wherein which they had, they had either guidance or the ability to accept the fact that it was a place where something out of the ordinary could occur. Let's call it a spiritual experience. So to a certain degree, people would come prepared to not defend themselves. You know, like people go to an ashram in India. You know, you go with a mindset in order to begin to have experiences that are not, you know, that are out of your ordinary pattern of life. So, you know, people would come into session and they'd have these profound moments of awakening. We call them poppers, and they would happen all the time. Now, when somebody's mind pops open, and, you know, you need the direction afterward to try to figure out what the hell just happened to you, because you really don't know. It's unlike anything that happens to you in this world. The experiences of awakening, and as a matter of fact, in one of the lessons that we read today, one of the lessons that we read this week, what Jesus says is, an experience will come that will end doubt. We're so used to living in conditions of doubt, of suspiciousness and viciousness, that the end of doubt becomes suspect. But at any point in time, if you don't defend yourself, if you really come into a moment where you begin to feel the onset, of the need to defend yourself, and you consciously and willingly do not defend yourself, you're going to have an experience of what lies beyond defense. It's just the way it is. It's the way our minds and hearts were designed to operate. And something like the workbook of A Course in Miracles, it's giving us the tools, it's giving us a way to undo in a gentle way and retrain our mind so that when we're offered a true choice, when all of a sudden in the midst of some jackpot we find ourselves in, all of a sudden there's a little opening and we're offered a true choice, we've trained our mind in a systematic way, enough so we remember, oh, wait a second, I'm not going to do what I have always done. For just an instant, I'm not going to defend myself. I don't know how to not defend myself. I'm just going to be willing to not defend myself. Something not of this world will happen to you, because this world is based on attack and defense, and it is a projection of a mind that's hell-bent on retaining attack and defense as a distraction, as a means of distracting each and every one of us from sinking below where attack and defense seems to make sense in a world that we've projected, yet has never really brought us a satisfactory outcome. And in that instant, something so incredible is going to happen to you that you're going to want to learn why it happened, so that you continue to have experiences along those lines. And to me, that's one of the reasons why, we've been given A Course in Miracles in the world today. Because there's more and more signs of people having these awakening experiences. And I'm going to say this. Many, many people have had awakening experiences and walked and continued to walk away from the true direction the awakening experience is designed to take you, simply because the experience that they had, while it temporarily left them with no fear and in a condition of innocence, is not enough to destroy or take away or undermine the egoic thought system that can utilize even the light of the revelatory experience in order to feed itself and to maintain the continued separation. And, you begin to be able to recognize, people who have had revelatory experiences, as well as people who pick up A Course in Miracles and refuse to utilize the mind training as the discipline that it is. I mean, it's the exact opposite of what the world teaches. The mind training of A Course in Miracles is a discipline of freedom. We needed a discipline of death in order to continue in the ways of the world. We need a discipline of freedom that can show us, glimpse at a time, the truth of who we are, until finally, for once and for all, we recognize that the ego no longer has the ability to keep catching us up with its myriad number of questions, all disguised to keep us wondering the same thing. How did the impossible happen? How did I become separate from everything? And the ego builds up this massive case that we call space and time that causes us to be so far removed from the place in which we experience the separation, so as to have to wade through the debris, the effects of separation, in order to get down to the spot where a true decision can be made based on the recognition of an experience that we've had. That in fact we're not separate now, nor have we ever been separate in the past. So it's not possible to be separate in the future. And that's why, as Regina was saying, there's a need to question everything. There's a need to question even the spiritual teachings. Now, when I went through my awakening, when I went through, the initial phases of my awakening, the way it's like they say in the English language, the exception proves the rule. Well, prior to my going through what I went through, everything I thought of ended in death. And there was a certain futility to living in the world of space and time when I knew for a fact that it didn't matter what the hell anybody did or what I did, it was going to end in death. And the most I could ever be is a footmark in some is a footnote in some history book, or a statue that pigeons come to shit on. That's the best that you get here. You don't get anything more than that. So to me, when I used to think, before I had this awakening to the recognition that life is eternal, life is infinite, life is whole and perfect, and there is only love, everything I looked at ended in death. Now, every time I look at things, they disappear into the eternal light of truth, because I can see that even the dreamer of a dream has to have been created whole and perfect in order to have a dream of something other than that. So all roads now lead to our awakening and our salvation. They don't lead to death. Now, how long it takes an individual to learn that lesson and enact what is required of him in the moment-to-moment decisions that we're making, there's nothing I could do. I can't make those decisions for anyone. In a sense, when I make them for one and for all, because we're not separate. But the most I could do is help strengthen your ability to make the decision when finally you are offered the decision. And each and every one of us is being offered decisions all the time, the ability to make a decision. And part of what I find the value of the workbook of A Course in Miracles is the training of our mind in a systematic way. So at any point in time, when we're offered a moment to decide from the core of our being, our orientation is already so that we know within us the decision that we want to make. And we all want the same thing. We all want eternal life because we are eternal life now. We all want to recognize the truth and totality of love, because if love is true, total, whole, and perfect, there would be nothing outside of it, so there would be nothing to suffer from. And in my own experience of salvation, which is the recognition that we do all make it out of this alive, and it's only time that separates our momentary lack of awareness of that from each other's momentary recognition of it. There will become a moment in time when each and every one of us recognizes that salvation has already been accomplished by decisions that we've made. And we're free to no longer have to continue to do this. Now, we're training our mind in a systematic way so that we can continue to make the choice for life, eternal, infinite, whole, and perfect, so that we have the right orientation and motivation to make decisions that will, in a sense, bring back the meaning of the kingdom, where we were previously living meaningless lives because we lost communication with the reality of who we are. in the kingdom of heaven as being whole, perfect, and eternal. So I've been going on for a little while here. And I think I might play a little music. And then, I don't know if anyone else has something. I don't know, does anybody have anything they want to throw up for, or does anybody just want to throw up? Believe me, I got to tell you something. When you're sick and tired of your own crap, you're going to want to throw up. You're going to want to, like, literally throw up all the debris that you've kept within you. Because it really is sickening stuff. Dave, you want to say something now? Yeah, I'll give you the mic. Go ahead, Dave.
Am I talking? I guess everything's gone quiet. Okay, so I did want to talk when you were talking about bottom up or top down before, and you're saying it's exactly the same process. In a sense, yes, but your ability to witness it is different, because when I was reading the course book is designed specifically from a bottom up. It starts with lesson one, nothing goes, and in a sense it does follow a linear way of thinking, because it doesn't, you are required to at first, the first half of the workbook is undoing how you see. But the experience of that, the experience of your enlightenment or salvation, whatever you want to call it, your revelatory experience, it removes that whole first half of the workbook instantly. So for me, and I can't say about for anybody else, I can only say for me, there was this massive confusion. I didn't know after that experience. It's like all I really needed was somebody, I guess, in a certain sense, to say, hey, you're okay, that's fine, something's happened for you, and we can sort of see where you're at. But nobody could really tell me where I was at, because I'm reading this book that says nothing I see means anything. And that wasn't a new idea to me, because I'd had the experience of union in God first. I came to the course already aware of my true self, and it was like when I read nothing I see means anything, it's like, well, yep, now what? I already knew that. But the second half of the workbook for me was really more important. Although applying all those lessons in the first half of the workbook sort of, it's like the rug got pulled out of from under my feet, and I found myself back, well, with lesson one in regards, but doing that stuff, and it kind of stabilized that experience in me, because like you said, the ego would like to take that experience and make it into some sort of, I don't know, higher form of an identity. And I was just so fucked up. And I remember after that experience, I didn't know what the hell to do with it. I'd had my house an hour and a half away from where you guys all were, and I was just coming down on the weekends and listening and participating in the meditative stuff. And Annie saw me at the Shannon Markets, I think it was, anyway, one day. And I was so fucked up on that experience, because the world didn't make sense to me, but I didn't know that it was okay that it didn't make sense. And I don't know if that makes sense. But Annie said to me, man, you got the energy of a dead fish or a cold fish or something. And I knew from that moment I had to go and sit with all you guys, like every day. I just had to be there. I just had to get my head straight, because like pre the experience, my head was all fucked up. I was all over the place. Post the experience, similar thing, but in a different kind of way. So like today, I live with two experiences in my head. One is real and one's not. And it's taken me all these years to be okay with that, to accept that, to understand, and partly through using the workbook, listening to other people talking about it, reading books, doing everything I can possibly get my hands on to integrate that experience. What it would be like for me if I had not had that experience and to do it from the bottom up, I don't know. I think it would be hard work, but in a sense, not any more hard work than, it's like he says in the Bible, the road to heaven is steep and hard, and there's not many people on there. But it's like, man, I know guys that have been doing the workbook for a long time, and it's like, God bless you. And I did it for many years, and God bless me too. But as far as it being the same top down, bottom up, I kind of wish there was a Course in Miracles book or a supplement written for people that have already had the top down, you know. It's like, I think it took me my first 2 years at the centre to realise that I just had to do those lessons from lesson one, even though I already knew what they were saying, even though there was a part of my mind that had already been completely awakened to everything the first half of the workbook said. The second half of the workbook was just, I don't know, it was kind of stating the obvious also, but in a different way. It was, the second half was kind of more useful to me. I felt more of a peace and more of an alignment with the experience that I'd had, and it helped me to become tangible, if you like, in a physical sense with that experience, so I could actually function in the world and just hold down a kind of a job and do something basic and simple. But yeah, I've only ever met a couple of people who've come to A Course in Miracles because they've had an experience first, or a major experience. There's a lot of experiences, and individually so, but anyway, a couple of people that have had that first, and I've not through the way we came to it, but I tried to give them the course and help them with the workbook, because man, they were fried. That, like, if you're not ready for it, like I met one guy that did this yoga thing that he kind of invented himself based on a bunch of stuff that he'd been going along to and reading about and thinking about and whatever. And he'd had an experience of the light, the golden light, and going beyond his physical self, but there was still form involved in it, so I knew that it was still a kind of a temporal, you know, there was not a true letting go. But that guy hadn't slept for over 3 years, and his eyes were red and bugged out, and he had wife and kids, couldn't hold down a job, and that really fucked with his head. And he could understand that the workbook made sense to him and that he had to do it, but because it had been so long, I guess, this is just a complete assumption, but I couldn't get through to him that, you know, just do the lessons and you'll be fine. But he was like talking to the trees, kind of crazy. And you know, I know there's a lot of judgment involved in there, but I've seen a lot of stuff, and it's like, it's really hard to try and put it into words. It's really hard to try and talk about it without the use of what seems to be judgment. But the judgments that I would like to give towards this are those that would direct somebody towards the light and towards the use of the workbook and towards a greater understanding of how it is, whether you come to this from top down or bottom up. It's like the thing that I've written recently, I've been writing or compiling stuff that I've been writing over 17 years that I've just sent to Ted to try and get some sort of book thing happening with it, is strictly, or more, not strictly, but more designed, I guess, to represent a top-down kind of approach to the course, because I never had that. I never had someone that could say, oh, you're a top-downer. You know, you're one of those guys. It's like, well, here, this will help you. This will help you to understand what a bottom-up, top-down kind of... It's like, man, it's like free-falling. But anyway, it all worked out good in the end, but without the help of all the guys that were at Byron and Ted and Annie and everybody, it would have been just... I'd be in the nut house right now. And am. All right, anyway, I'm going to go. Lynn, be still, Dave. Do you have a book? Yes, it's in progress, Lynn. Ted's doing something with it, but don't worry about reading it. You just heard it. You got it. It's in me. And now it's in you. Okay, I love you. Bye.
And there you have it. No, it is really true, and that's one of the things that I talk about. You know, it's like, you know, when I underwent the experience that I underwent, I realized that what I had been doing before that experience was not what life is. In fact, I was just merely walking complacently toward death. There was no life in the experience that I had. Now, but I do absolutely understand, and I think and if I talk about Helen for a second, you know, when you expose yourself to real light, when you expose yourself to the mind of Jesus, when you begin to have serious revelatory experiences, and Helen was one of those. Helen, if you read all of the notes, if you read, you know, a lot of the stuff that isn't included in A Course in Miracles, one of the things that Jesus talks about to Helen is the idea that the messages, the notes that she takes, become more and more personal, become ultra personal after she's had a revelatory experience, because in the revelatory experience, there's the absence of fear. And because you get direct, non-conceptual transmission of pure light energy that has zero to do with the world of space and time. And that wreaks havoc on the ego. The ego wants you to disengage from those experiences, so we'll bring you jackpots of life in the world of space and time in order to get you to do anything but pay attention to the revelation and the light and the love that you're experiencing. Now, if you don't know what to do with it, and I think, a lot of people don't know the story of the master teacher. The master teacher underwent this massive revelatory experience, had no idea what had gone on, why it happened, what was happening, and he was trying to maintain the business as selling real estate. Well, more and more he found himself trying to figure out what happened to him, so he spent a real lot of time in the Theosophical Society library in Chicago, in the main library of the Theosophical Society, trying to figure out what just happened to him. And the problem is that a lot of people go back and establish themselves as part of a tradition, and then attempt to understand what happened to them based on the past, which is the exact opposite of what we're designed to do. Because there's no lineage, there's no space and time, there's no lineage in that sense. The whole practice ultimately is designed to show us that we no longer have to repeat space and time in any regard. So it would be senseless to have a lineage when the idea is to not have to continue to do this. Now, when the old man went through his awakening, he didn't have A Course in Miracles right away, but much like he did, he began talking about what was going on for him to everyone or anyone who he would meet and would listen. Eckhart Tolle was probably the same way. Many of the mystics who have these experiences just begin automatically thinking, because it is, part of what it is you come to know is, everybody is what you've just awakened to. Absolutely everyone and everything is what you just awakened to. And there was an element of my waking up where I recognized that I was the last one to wake up, and everybody already knew this. Clear to me, in my moments of waking, that everybody already knew this, and God created only minds awake. And in a sense, I had to learn that people were sleeping in order to begin to fulfill my function of helping people awaken, because I couldn't see it. I can see that people were wearing disguises, and they were attempting to sort of disguise themselves, and for good reason. I mean, look what they did to Jesus. But I absolutely could see beyond everybody's disguise to recognize that there absolutely was a mind that was whole, perfect, and functioning wholly and perfectly, and wide awake behind every single costume that I thought I saw. Now, when you begin to operate in that frame of reference, and you start to talk to people, the people you look and talk to think you're crazy because they're not recognizing them about yourself, and there's a tendency to get locked up, which is what has happened to me on several occasions. And without, having the ability to access the divine guidance that I get in my mind to tell me what to do in the situations I found myself in, God knows what would have happened to me. Because there are a lot of people, and India is a perfect example. People, they talk about them as premature awakenings. People who have premature awakenings and aren't prepared for it get driven mad by the light that they experience. And Helen was no different than that. You have to remember that Helen Schuckman devoted herself to working with Jesus for 7 or 8 years of her life, where on a daily basis, she allowed herself to join with the brightness of the Christ mind that is Jesus. Yet without the integration of the light that you begin to experience, the light has the ability to destroy the ego's, let's say, control. And in a world of space and time, where people are sort of, looking at you funny because you're in bliss that can't be explained, without some sort of guiding principles to help you through those moments, strange things are liable to happen. Now, Helen had 6, 7, 8 years of direct contact with Jesus on a daily basis, where she was experiencing, non-conceptual communication that she was able to give concept to. And the amount of light energy, transformative light energy. Jesus says there's a place in the Course, and this is the practicality of A Course in Miracles, where he tells Helen, when you can teach as much as you learn, you will find an equilibrium. When you are able to teach as much as you can learn and express yourself from within that process, you discover a stability and an equilibrium that is not of this world. And somewhere, that's how we learn to integrate the light and the love that comes to us in the experiences that we have, be they ones of major revelation or just through individual aspects, individual instances of forgiveness. And sometimes I look at myself and I say, the reason why I needed the revelatory experience that I needed was because my head was too hard. My head was too hard. It needed to be cracked open in that way. It's like I needed more time to integrate the amount of light that you all are already getting than perhaps you needed. So in that sense, I needed to have this happen to me sooner because I seem to be denser than most. And I don't know if that's true, but I've always felt that way because there was no way in the world I was prepared for what happened to me to have happened to me. And the more I read the text of A Course in Miracles, the more I began to understand what it was that was being asked for me, and the ability to have the workbook to help train my mind, to give my mind something to do, to give the new mind that I was experiencing myself as some exercises that I could perform in the course of the day that would help me understand what was occurring to me, rather than having to continually subject myself to the world on the world's terms without any sort of help whatsoever. It was a blessing. Now, that didn't mean that there were times when I was in actual, fits of ecstasy for 3-4 days at a time. And there were other times where this well of sadness, where there was a well of sadness that I could feel needed to be healed and cleared out, would cause me to be disconsolate in tears of rage and sorrow. But it's all part of the process. And as we do the lessons that bring about the experiences that make sense of the text, we begin to understand why these things happen to us. what the sorrow actually is, why it's important to feel the sorrow without judging ourselves, why it's important to know that we can change our mind because it is our thoughts that are the actual problem. So like in today's lesson, again, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Now, if we forget the reason why we're doing the workbook, being told that you have meaningless thoughts that are showing you a meaningless world isn't necessarily a very happy proposition. But when you put it in the context of it being an exercise in undoing the meaninglessness of your own thinking so as to discover the joy of a meaning that comes from a divine reality, now you have motivation to go through what you need to go through in order to have an experience that really isn't available in any other way. So we're getting the tools with how to deal with our mind, because Jesus is the master of how our minds and hearts work and how they can work in unison to begin to show us a truth that's really not available in the world, but certainly is available within each and every one of us. So with that, I think I'm going to play a little music.
Whenever God shine a light on me, open up my eyes so I can see. When I look up in the darkest night, and I know everything is gonna be alright. In deep confusion, in great despair, when I reach out for help, He is there. When I am lonely as I can be, and I know that God shines His light on me. Reach out for help, reach out for help. He'll be there, He'll be there. Within your trouble, within your troubles, you can share, you can share. If you let, if you let, life you love, life you love, you get the blessing, yeah, from above. Heals the sick, and He heals the lame. Says you can do it too, in Jesus' name. I lift you up and He turns you around, and I put your feet back on higher ground. Reach out for help. He'll be there. Within your trouble, you can share. Oh, you can use His higher power every day, yeah, any hour. Heals the sick, He heals the lame, and He says you can heal them too in Jesus' name. He lifts you up and He turns you around. Put your feet back on, your feet higher ground, higher ground. Shines a light. Whenever God shines His light on you.
Okay, that was Van Morrison. Whenever God shines his light on me. So I don't know. Here we are. We have it's about 6:30. I guess I'm here to about what time? 7 o'clock. Or so. And I don't really know what else is there. I do know. I do know one thing. It's not? No. It says it's on. Let's talk about special relationships. Yes, it's on. It's everybody saying it's on. Annie's upstairs telling me it's not on, but apparently it's on. Let's talk about special relationships. We all got them. We're all in them. And there's no way you're getting rid of them without making them holy. And the only way you're going to make them holy is to remove the specialness and the limitations that you put on yourself and your brothers so that you see them as eternal, whole, and perfect, and you experience in the wholeness and the perfection within yourself. And I think, now to me, and this is something new, I haven't, if Kevin comes back, holy love, you're on. Oh, okay. You have your hand up, holy love. Did you want the mic? See, oh, okay. To me, 1 second. To me, a special relationship is a relationship wherein which you look for your completeness and you look for your wholeness in something outside of you, be it a person, place, or a thing. So the nature of a special relationship to me is we're feeling incomplete, we're feeling less than whole, we're feeling less than perfect, and we think that there's something outside of us that's going to be able to complete us and give us that thing that we feel is missing. And every relationship in this world is founded on specialness, and every relationship in this world is destined to be made holy through our willingness to forgive ourselves our own illusions. And the illusion, well, we'll finish out the half hour, and the illusion that we are anything but whole and perfect is in fact how we come to the end of specialness. When we begin to understand through experiences that are brought to us through shifts in our mind. I'll give you the mic in 1 second. Through experiences that are brought into our life through the freeing of our mind of limitation, when we begin to see the wholeness and perfection and the condition of being lacking of need because we have been given all things, then we will begin to stop looking in the world as an ego, which is a getting device, and begin to look at the world out from our own wholeness, where we are seeing and giving our brothers that same light of wholeness. For me, there's been this new thing going on, and it's a slight shift. It's a slight shift that keeps on being offered to me, wherein which I see everything as whole. And I can't describe to you what that looks like, but it is like looking between the notes. You know how we talk about the idea that the music is between the notes, it's not in the notes? It's beginning to be able to see between the notes to where we're all connected, to where the wholeness is, that we're united in. And it's a whole nother sort of view that I get afforded from time to time. And it doesn't seem to be based on anything that I do myself. It's just based on my certainty that I am whole and perfect, and therefore so are you. And it's the slightest of shifts that takes place in my mind and my heart, where things no longer appear as separate individual items or entities, but they're shown to me in this unity way, wherein in which there's this spectacular understanding and view. And the truth is, it's this incredible experience of knowing that I need nothing, nor do I need do anything. I need do nothing, because I'm already whole and perfect, and so is everything. And it's sort of, I don't know, man. It's sort of like, it's just a blessing when that begins to happen, because it's like seeing between the lines and understanding that what has been going on since the beginning of time to the end of time has always been between the lines, and it's always been available at any moment of time. And at any moment in time, our view could shift, and we see it as being all of what time has been anyway. So it's really interesting. Zulma, I haven't heard from you in a long time. You used to be on every morning. What happened? Let's take the mic. Give us some words. Zulma, do you want the mic? No? Or I don't know, maybe she stepped out of the room. Yeah, so this whole idea, I mean, there is a recognition, and you know, there's something there's also something, you know, that I know that I also seldom hear spoken of, and Dove says it a lot. I mean, he talks about, you know, the idea in the Course that says salvation is our only accomplishment. Now, when I went through this experience of saying yes to Jesus, one of the things that I saw quite clearly was that we, in the sense that we needed to be saved, we had all already been saved by the grace of God. And there was really nothing to be saved from. We were all just this one experience away of recognizing the fact that you know, salvation was a fait accompli. And you know, I don't hear that spoken of much in, you know, Course in Miracles parlors. I don't know if people understand what salvation is as an experience. I don't hear people speaking of it. I hear people talking about, you know, wanting to wake up, wanting to end the dream, wanting to be, you know, have all types of shifts and changes. Do they make a pill for premature awakening? But I don't often see salvation as being recognized as something that, you know, we can all have as a true experience, because the truth of the matter is, when you recognize the fact that you're saved, and you always have been, you also recognize the fact that this is an illusion, and it has never been at all. And one of the things that Dave was talking about was in one of his experiences, when he finally got the totality of what was being offered to him, there was the ability to finally sit back and rest and enjoy the ride, because it is, in a sense, a ride. And when we learn to not resist the ride we're on, because our orientation is acceptance. Oh, you ready? Because our orientation is toward the acceptance of who we are, where we are, and we have the trust to tell us that, you know, whatever we're going through is merely a temporary condition. And because we are eternal, we are whole, and we are perfect, a lot of the tension that we experience begins to go away, and we can begin to laugh at some of our own foibles. We can begin to laugh at ourselves and not take ourselves so seriously, even, you know, in the seriousness of being a spiritual teacher or a Course in Miracles student, where the salvation of the world depends on me. Well, the salvation of the world that depends on you has nothing to do with the you that questions its ability to fulfill its function in the plan of salvation, because the salvation of the world, which rests upon you, rests upon the Christ that you already are, and its ability to live in the grace of God and fulfill the will of God instantaneously without the need for space and time at all. And that's the discovery that each and every one of us is going to make about who we actually are. So Zoma, are you ready? Would you like the mic? Yes? Yes. Okay, here you go. Take it. Nope, I guess no Zoma yet. Oh, well. Maybe it keeps on. Maybe there's something wrong with the program. It keeps on. I want to read this. Salvation, the atonement, or the undoing of separation. We are saved from our belief in the reality of sin and guilt through the change of mind that forgiveness and the miracle bring about. And that's entirely true. Um, well, today when I was talking about the workbook, one of the ways in which I tried to talk about it is as a break in as in the restoration of communication at the point at which communication was broken. So in each and every one of us, there's this instant where the communication, the eternal and infinite flow of communication that we receive from our source, from that which gives us meaning, from that which gives us life. In each and every one of us, there's a momentary glitch in our experience buried deep, deep down within us that the ego does not want us to discover. Because its life, its existence, its ability to detract you from doing the will of God is dependent on the restoration of communication not taking place in you individually. I remember one of the most ecstatic experiences that I ever had was with these guides that call themselves the tech crew. And I was out driving around, and all of a sudden, I was just in this pristine moment of pure communication that had no concepts in it whatsoever. And it was a direct flow of love and light from beyond anything in time, yet within me and within everything that I was looking out upon as well. It was part and parcel of everything. And in that instant, when all of a sudden the tech crew was capable of communicating with me beyond concepts, and I was able to sustain the reception and extension of that communication, what they told me was the only job that any of us has is to allow that communication to be restored. And the acceptance of that which has been given us to restore that communication within us. And I have to tell you, as far as ecstasy goes, as far as bliss goes, the bliss that I experienced in the restoration of the communication at that level with the tech crew was so pristine, so innocent, and so perfect that there is nothing in this world that can compete with it. And yet, it gives meaning also to everything that happens to me in this world. Now, that's what each and every one of us is working to have happen as we undo the fear and the guilt that ultimately we think has something to do with God, but really has nothing to do with anything but our misperceptions of who we actually are. God knows of no break in communication, and he knows that communication has stopped, so he gave us the patch, which is the Holy Spirit. It is a piece of the same seamless cloth wherein which the break seems to have occurred. So the patch is the same as the communication. It's a seamless garment that we all have been given. And what we're being offered through the entirety of the text, the workbook, and I'll tell you, especially the manual for teachers. The manual for teachers is designed to help us learn to interact with our brothers. Forgiveness is something that we realize within ourselves. It's intrapersonal, it's within ourselves. A miracle is the way we're designed to interact with our brothers. It's intrapersonal. And that's what it means to be a teacher of God. To be able to be in situations with our brothers where our mind is open to both receiving and giving that which we are accepting in these moments of non-conceptual communication, that we can make real for our brothers here in space and time, so they too can begin to experience the fact that they are not separate from us, so that they can't be separate from anything in the universe, including God, including our brothers who seem to have already recognized their own true Christhood. But that's the nature of the undertaking of salvation, the restoration of communication, so that we can once again be in a constant contact and flow of the abundance of life eternal and infinite, and the love of God that he created us to be, so that we can extend that love in the self-same way he extends it, in order for us to know of our own creative capacity as we create, as our Father created us to create. So with that, I think I may actually play another song. And we'll still have a few more minutes after it. So if anybody has anything they'd like to say in parting or in passing, please feel free. There's lots of people in here that I know and I love. And I would truly be grateful if some of them would like to take the mic. Kevin, I haven't heard from Kevin in a long time. Vicky, she's here. She could say something. Zolma, can you finally talk? Is that true? Let's see. Let's see if Zolma can take the mic this time.
So you stretched out in room 1009 with a smile on your face and a tear in your eye. Oh, couldn't seem to get a line.